If you really stop and think about it, music isn't just, entertainment. It's a fundamental part of being human. It started way before we had written language or even metal tools. Today, we're going to trace this story over 40,000 years, showing how people used music, just simple rhythm and melody, to connect, to celebrate, and even to survive.
It's really the ultimate human story, isn't it? It tracks perfectly with how societies and technology change. Our mission here is to see exactly how music evolved with civilization.
Mm.
Not just the instruments, but how its whole purpose changed from, say, a spiritual thing in a cave to what you stream on your phone.
Okay, let's start in the deep past then, the ancient foundations. We're talking about discoveries that, they push back our whole idea of human creativity by tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists have found these incredible flutes in German caves that are over 40,000 years old.
Right, and these aren't just like crude sticks with holes in them. They were skillfully made from things like bird bones and even mammoth ivory. What that tells us is that our ancestors weren't only focused on finding food and building shelters. They had this deep drive to create organized, expressive sound.
I find that so fascinating. The idea that making a melody was maybe just as important for survival as, say, making a good spearhead.
Mm.
So if they didn't have writing, how was music even working in those small prehistoric groups?
It was everything for social cohesion. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. If you don't have written laws or a shared text, you need these really powerful ways to bond. Prehistoric people used sound clapping their hands, hitting stones together for rhythm in rituals and gatherings. That shared rhythm built a powerful sense of identity. It basically unified a tribe.
So music was the original social glue. Okay, let's fast forward thousands of years to when we get big, organized societies, the ancient civilizations. How did music's role change once writing finally came along?
It became specialized and highly valued. If you look at ancient Egypt in Mesopotamia, you see harps and these beautiful lyres painted in royal tombs. That's not just decoration. It shows that musicians were respected professionals. They played at huge religious festivals and court events. Music was tied directly to power.
And this is where it gets really interesting on the sort of theoretical side. Ancient Greece, they didn't just enjoy music, they saw it as a science. They actually connected the notes to the movement of the planet.
Exactly. This is where we get the
Okay.
basic building blocks of all Western music theory. Pythagoras and his followers, they used mathematical ratios to define the musical scales we still use. They turned sound into this, predictable logical system.
That is a huge step. You're going from just intuitive drumming to mathematically proven scales.
And then the Romans, they took a lot of Greek ideas, but made them more practical. They loved loud brass instruments like the tuba and the cornu for military parades and for the big public games. But the biggest innovation from all these cultures was developing the first systems of notation. They could finally write down and save their songs. Preservation became possible.
And preservation is everything. It lets art and knowledge jump across generations. Moving on to the Middle Ages, it feels like everything in Europe, especially music, was filtered through the Christian church.
For sure, the church was the main patron. It poured resources into developing music for religious services. This is the era that gives us Gregorian chants. These were really simple, single-line melodies, what we call monophonic, sung by monks, no instruments. The goal was to create a peaceful, meditative feeling.
But human creativity always pushes for more, right? That single line of melody didn't last forever. People started adding layers.
Right, and that's the birth of polyphony. It's a huge conceptual leap. It literally means many sounds. So multiple independent melodies all happening at the same time. Think of singing around like row, row, row your boat, but way, way more complex. And you can't do that without precision. So musical notation had to get way more specific so that all the singers could coordinate their parts.
So better notation was the technology that let polyphony happen. But what was going on outside the church?
Outside the cathedral, you had the whole secular world. You had traveling performers, troubadours they were called, who were like the musical news carriers. They'd go from court to court, sharing stories of chivalry and love, playing instruments like lutes and small drums. They were the pop music of their day.
And then the Renaissance hits. There's this massive cultural shift back towards the human experience. How did that change what composers were writing?
Well, the focus shifted from only glorifying God to celebrating human emotion and the beauty of nature. Composers still wrote incredible church music, but they also started writing these secular pieces called madrigals about love and pain and poetry.
The ultimate game changer for music in this period, though, has to be the printing press.
Oh, absolutely. The printing press meant sheet music could be published and distributed widely for the very first time. Before that, everything was copied by hand, so it was super expensive and rare. Now, the growing middle class could actually buy music and play it at home on, say, a lute. It was the democratization of music.
The rise of musical literacy must have created a whole new kind of job, the professional composer.
It did. The composer went from being an anonymous craftsman for the church to a celebrated public artist. And that really sets the stage for the next period, the Baroque.
Okay, the Baroque period. When I think of that word, I think drama, complexity, and just a lot of ornamentation.
That's spot on. The style is all about grand scale and intense emotion. It was designed to impress you, to overwhelm you, and the instruments got so much better. The violin, family violins, violas, cellos were perfected, and the harpsichord was kind of the engine driving the orchestra.
We also get the birth of opera, which feels like the ultimate Baroque idea. It combines everything.
It was a massive spectacle. Music, theater, dance, crazy stage designs, all to create the biggest emotional impact possible. Composers like Bach and Handel mastered this kind of structural drama. They used techniques like counterpoint and sudden changes from loud to soft to create a ton of excitement.
And they also developed the concerto, right, to show off individual players.
Yes, the concerto was designed specifically to feature a star solo performer playing against the full orchestra. It was all about showcasing incredible technical skill and individual brilliance.
That focus on complexity and intense emotion sounds a little exhausting. I can imagine people wanting a change.
It absolutely did. By the mid-1700s, there was this feeling of sensory overload, and that leads us straight into the classical era. The whole style shifted away from all that heavy decoration and toward clarity, order, and balance.
So instead of complexity, they wanted simplicity and elegance. This is the time of Mozart and Haydn.
Exactly. They focused on catchy, memorable melodies and clear logical structures. The biggest achievement of the era was the symphony, which became this huge form for the orchestra. And importantly, these were now performed in public concert halls, not just for royalty.
And we have to talk about the biggest new instrument of the classical era, the piano.
The piano, or pianoforte, changed everything. The harpsichord before it could only play at one volume, but the piano let you control the dynamics. You can play both soft, piano, and loud forte. It immediately became the most popular instrument because it was just so much more expressive.
And on a smaller scale, they also perfected intimate music, didn't they? The string quartet.
Yes, 2 violins, a viola, and a cello. The string quartet was the perfect classical form. 4 equal voices having a balanced, elegant conversation.
But as always, that search for perfect balance couldn't last. The Romantic movement that came next was all about raw, personal emotion.
The Romantic composers felt the classical rules were like a straitjacket. Their whole goal was to break the forms, to express deep personal feelings, telling big stories about nature or destiny or national pride.
Beethoven is the key figure here, right? He kind of bridges the two styles.
He does, but his later work definitely opened the floodgates for Romanticism.
Yeah.
To get that massive emotional sound, orchestras got much, much bigger. They added more brass, more woodwinds, more percussion. They needed that power to really move the audience, to make them feel something intensely.
And this was also the age of the virtuoso, the celebrity performer like Liszt, who was basically a rock star for his time.
Precisely. His stage presence was almost as important as his playing. It was all about the genius of the individual artist.
Okay, now we hit the 20th century, and the center of musical innovation just completely shifts. We move from European concert halls to American cities, and that brings us to the birth of the blues.
The blues grew out of African-American communities in the South. It came from work songs and spirituals. It uses these really specific scales and rhythms to express a history of, sadness and hardship, but also resilience. It was testimony.
And then, as people move north, that sound mixed with brass band traditions in cities like New Orleans, and you get jazz.
And jazz introduces one of the biggest changes in music history: improvisation. Instead of just reading notes off a page, jazz players were expected to make up their solos on the spot, interacting with the other musicians. It demanded incredible skill.
And the technology that let these new sounds take over the world was the phonograph, the record player.
Yeah, being able to record a performance and play it back at home meant music could spread globally in just a matter of months. That's how jazz, and soon rock and roll, became so huge so fast.
Speaking of rock and roll, it was this perfect mix of rhythm and blues, country music, and a really heavy backbeat.
And its defining sound, the key piece of tech, was the electric guitar. It gave music a loudness and a power that was completely new. It became the symbol of youth rebellion.
Yeah, it created global superstars like Elvis and the Beatles, and television just blasted them into everyone's living rooms.
Then you fast forward to the 1970s, to the Bronx in New York City, and the next major urban sound is born: hip-hop.
How is this structurally different from what came before?
It was founded on repurposing what already existed. DJs used two turntables to find and loop the drum breaks from old records, creating this constant beat. And then an MC, a rapper, would tell stories over that beat, talking about life in the city, about struggles, about politics.
And hip-hop became this huge cultural movement with breakdancing, graffiti, fashion. What was the key technology for the producers?
The sampler. It's an electronic device that let producers record little snippets of old songs, chop them up, and layer them into brand new tracks. It became this incredibly powerful tool for social commentary.
Which brings us right up to today, the digital age. We've gone from bird-bone flutes to having literally every song ever recorded right in our pocket.
The change is just staggering. Computers and smartphones give you instant access to millions of songs through streaming. Music isn't a physical thing you own anymore. It's a service.
But what about making music? That's where the real power shift is today, isn't it?
Absolutely. The whole process of creating music has been democratized. An artist can record and release a high-quality track from their bedroom with just a laptop and a microphone. You don't need a big record label anymore. The artist has the control.
And new genres like electronic dance music rely completely on this tech, using synthesizers and computers to create sounds that are, impossible with traditional instruments.
So after this whole journey, what does it all mean for you right now?
Well, music is still the most powerful universal connection we have. We started with prehistoric tribes bonding over rhythm. Today, music still brings us together at weddings, concerts, or even just through a national anthem.
And it connects with us on a really deep personal level, too. Science shows that listening to music actually changes your brain chemistry. It can improve your mood. It's the ultimate form of transcendence. You don't have to understand the words to feel the emotion in a melody. Music has always reflected what it means to be human in every era. Our need for ritual, for order, for expression, and for connection.
So that link between human expression and new technology is what keeps the story going. We've gone from bone flutes to algorithms screaming billions of songs to your phone. It's still the most powerful language we have.
And if this history teaches us anything, it's that the next big innovation will probably come from a new way that people use sound to interact with each other. So the question for you to think about is, what new tech will drive the next stage of human connection through music?
A fascinating thought. Good luck with your studies and keep listening.